Hey everybody, it's Mr. G. Welcome back to another episode of Just Corvette Crazy. What we're going to be doing today is replacing the oil pressure sensor on the LS6 engine in the 2002 Z06. So stay tuned. Hey folks, this is Mr. G and welcome to Just Corvette Crazy. On this channel we talk about Corvettes, we fix some Corvettes, and we love to drive our Corvettes. So if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out a lot. Thanks. Alright, thanks for sticking around. So the reason I'm going to be replacing the oil pressure sensor today is I started getting a lot of fluctuations in oil pressure over the last couple of weeks. Now it's not like the oil pressure is falling. The gauge is actually rising. So I'm getting increased oil pressure on the gauge. And then it drops and then goes back up. So depending on whether the car is warm or cold, I'm actually getting all the way to the pinning, so almost 80 pounds of oil pressure. So I'm going to replace the sensor and see if that cures my problem. So let's take a look and see how it's done. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to show you how to do this. I have my inspection camera set up and I'm recording the image off the inspection camera, so I'll be putting that up as well, so you get an idea of what it is that we're doing. So the location of the oil pressure sensor is right about here, so just kind of underneath this cowling area, right down driver's side back of the intake on the block. So I've got the inspection camera sitting there, and you can see from the image on the inspection camera how tight it is in that area and what it is we're actually trying to do. So the oil pressure sensor has a plug that comes into it. Our first job is to remove that plug. Second job is to get the socket over top of the sensor, remove it, install the new sensor, hook up the wire. So let's give it a try. There we go. So it just takes a little bit of effort, and hopefully, there we get. Alright, so just using the pick, was able to get the clip off. Takes a little working, but was able to get it off. So next thing is to lower a socket down on top of the oil pressure sender. And remove it. Alright, so I picked up a socket for this purpose at the local auto shop. If you don't have a special socket, you can use a 1 1/16 deep socket. I picked up this medium depth one just to give us a little bit extra room as we get back in there. So I'm just going to remove the plug out of the way. So there's the plug. And I'll give that a little squirt of contact cleaner before I put it back on. Alright, so let's give this a whirl. I might have to move my camera a little bit. Go. All right, and there she is out of the hole. So, just gotta see if I can grab it. Oh, it's not magnetic. And there she is. So I just went in with a pair of long nose pliers and I grabbed it. Alright, so I put a little bit of tape on the new socket just so that it grips the oil pressure sender, so that I can actually hold it upside down, get it threaded without having to worry about it falling out. So let's give this a try. So what you want to do is slowly spin it, and hopefully it grabs those threads. And then what you want to do is pull the socket off. And if the pressure sensor stays in then you've caught your threads. So there we are. See if I can get you a better look here. There it is. All right, so I am very concerned about cross-threading the oil pressure sensor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to remove this shroud that covers over the mechanism for the wipers. I'm going to basically pop this shroud off. I'm going to drill myself a little hole about here in the fiberglass underneath, and then I can fit a long extension through the hole, and that way I'm coming at the oil pressure sensor from directly above. I'm concerned about all of the wobbling when you put the joints on the ends. So I'll show you what I mean. So when we're like this, there's all kinds of wobbling and things don't stay really straight. So I'm going to do my best to come at this from the top. So what I have to do is I'm going to put this down on top of the oil pressure sensor since I started the threads a little bit, and then I'm going to feed this through my hole and come at it like this and then tighten it up that way. So what I plan on using is a little hole saw. I think this is about 1.25 inches maybe. And I'm just going to drill a small hole right about here, and then I'll fill that hole up later once I'm all said and done. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So there's my hole. It's located right on top of the pressure sensor. So now I can come at it straight. So I can come at it straight now with a ratchet. So just a little hole in the fiberglass. All right. We get it nice and tight. Bring that up. Pull the socket off. And then out. So now all I need to do is feed that plug back on, and that part of the repair is done. Alright, so before I put the shroud and stuff back on,
what I want to do is I want to fill up that hole. So we don't have any water coming in. So what I've decided to use is basically a roof patch. It's an epoxy. You can use a silicone caulking. I just found this at the hardware store. It's actually for fiberglass shingles. So since this is fiberglass, I figure it should work fine. So what I'm going to do is basically just kind of patch this up. I do have the little round part that was cut out, so I'm going to see if I can actually salvage that. Okay, so I was able to pull out the part that came right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape it from the back and silicone or seal it in from the front. Okay, I'm just using a little bit of painter's tape. Let's get this in first. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of go over and seal that. So like I say, we can just go over it now and kind of spread it out, make sure it covers up good. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry for a little bit and then come back and put everything back together. Okay, so now we're just going to put the plastic shroud back on. One thing you have to watch with this shroud is there are clips that go under the glass. So I'm just going to put the wipers back. Alright. Now I've got the weather stripping for along the back edge. So I'm just going to wait a little while, let that sealant cure a little bit more before I remove the tape. Well, the oil pressure sensor is in. It's working. Everything is back together. I'm still waiting for that sealant to dry up and to cure a little bit more. And once that's done, I'll pull off that backing tape that I put, and then put the fuel rail cover back on, and we're all set to go. So hopefully that solves my problem. I'll have to drive it around for a few days just to make sure that the problem has gone away. Again, the problem I was having was rising and falling oil pressure. So the oil pressure went all the way up, almost pinned it at 80, and then would fall back to 40. So now, when I started it up, it came up to about 45. So that was cold. So we'll see what happens once she warms up and see if that problem is gone. So fingers crossed. I would definitely recommend drilling that hole in that fiberglass earlier. It would save a lot of problems and issues that you have trying to access. Now, don't drill a big hole. I've seen people online cut a big square. All you need is something like 1.25 inches. Drill it out, and then you can easily patch it back in, and it looks very good. And you can't see anything because it's underneath the shroud anyway. So I would definitely recommend you do that at the beginning of your repair, just to give you a little bit better access to that area in behind, because it's very, very tight. It takes a lot of finagling to get things to come out. But all in all, other than the difficulty of the reaching and the small confined area, and that you can't see really what you're doing, it's not that bad of a repair. So, hope this helps you out. Until next time, Mr. G says, keep the rubber side down, everybody, and take care.